Good evening. Welcome to NIMSY's second installment of our Women's History Month series of watch parties for the docuseries by our sponsor 3M, Not the Science Type. For those of you joining us for the first time this evening, welcome. And for those of you returning, welcome back. My name is Alexis Constantini. I have been with NIMSY since 2013, first as a teacher participant myself, and then now as a coach. I've been teaching for 20 years in New York City Public High School, which is a huge accomplishment in New York City, to be in the same school for 20 years. I am currently teaching AP Environmental Science and some other electives. When I began working with NIMSY, I was new to teaching AP, and our coaches were so supportive and welcoming and encouraged me to get involved with NIMSY, first just in New York City and then more broadly. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with other educators, particularly STEM AP teachers, because I'm the only STEM AP teacher in my school. So it's amazing to be able to work with other STEM teachers from across the country and learn from each other. It's opportunities like tonight that allow us to hear from other educators from all over the country and to build our professional network. So Kat Garland and I created the accompanying discussion guides for use in a variety of ways and content areas. So that she is a physics teacher by trade, and I am a life science teacher by trade. So when we looked at these guides, we were hoping to make them useful for all content areas. Tonight's guide is going to highlight Dr. Jessica Taff, and we created these guides so that you could use them in our own, or so that we would be able to use them in our own classrooms, and so that you could use them in multiple ways, either just as the first part, or as you'll see later, there is broken into several activities. So we wanted to thank again 3M for our collaborating with NIMSY on the project that highlights 4 brilliant women in STEM. Dr. Taff has a PhD in microbiology and works in global health. She is passionate about her work in global health policy and uses her work to help people all over the world. Her story highlights personal identity and the stereotypes women face in the STEM fields. Her story illustrates the importance of representation and self-awareness. And at the conclusion of our short piece of the film, we'll go into the discussion guide and we'll take a look at the different pieces and how you might want to use those in your classrooms. And then please feel free to use the comments in order to ask questions, and I will do my best to answer them. So without further ado, we will watch the film.
There's a stereotype of scientists, one, that they're male and they're boring, they don't dress well, and they're like very awkward. I'm obviously not that type. You know, I'm a Latina woman, so I've got that Latina passion. I'm a person of faith. I sing, I dance, I love clothes. I'm not your typical scientist. And I always knew that being true to myself, being true to what drives me, was going to be the key to a successful and satisfying career.
Y el Taafe de Wahoo es como una hojita y le ponía como té.
My name is Dr. Jessica Taff. I'm a microbiologist by training, and I have used my PhD in microbiology and my experience studying infectious diseases like HIV and malaria to apply that in the world of global health, which is really important in everybody's lives. And I especially feel this now with COVID. I grew up in the United States. I was born here. My mom is Paraguayan.
Y yo estoy orgullosa de ti, Jessica. Muy orgullosa.
The Latin culture definitely plays into who I am and how I grew up. There's just this love of life. And family is so important to us. My dad's side, he's your typical WASP, I guess, Caucasian. He's a forester. That played into my childhood in a way that, we were out in nature. We always learned about science. Both of them encouraged not just us experiencing science, but other subjects like music and art. My mom has this funny story about me. She says, I always knew you were going to be a scientist because you used to mix all of my perfumes. I always had this interest in the biology of infectious diseases, but also really wanted to be involved in global health and apply my scientific expertise, my biomedical expertise in that arena. And the first roadblock was having people understand what type of career I wanted, because it was not your typical academic career, your typical research career. I couldn't really figure out how I was going to live at the intersection of that. And that was incredibly frustrating because it was something that I wanted to do. Another roadblock was I felt like I had to tone down my personality in order to be respected. So for instance, the first months that I was doing my postdoc at the National Institutes of Health, I didn't wear my red lipstick because I didn't want people to focus on that and then not take me seriously. I wanted them to focus on my science first. I really shouldn't have done that. But yeah, because I didn't see a lot of people like me, I felt like I had to fit in the way that just wasn't really authentic to who I am. To do something that felt true to my passion and true to professional mission, I had to find my community to help me figure this out. I sought out, what the global health community was. I found other people that understood the things that I was excited about and passionate about. I also met other people like myself and made friends with them and realized that there's a lot of diversity in science. There's a lot of other people like me. I feel like throughout my career, I've grown. I accept myself. And by not conforming, by staying true to myself, to my culture, to who I am, this gave me the confidence to pursue and make a path to my own type of career. I knew that I could use my scientific knowledge in the world of public health to make a difference in people's lives. And then, at some point, people started to notice that my points were valid. So I left the lab. I did a bunch of consulting in science in the global health arena, working for groups like the World Bank, United Nations, which was fantastic. That was definitely the realm that I enjoyed being in. It just clicks. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what keeps me moving forward. When COVID hit, this was this huge realization of this is what I have been preparing for my entire life. This is why science is important to global health, right here, right now. So scientists swooped in. They went to sequence the virus to better understand it. Now, a year later, we've got people getting vaccines. That's amazing. Scientists have been heroes in this pandemic, and it's been so exciting to see that play out. Everyone is going to remember this moment in time. They will remember having lived through COVID. I hope that the next generation of scientists get inspired by this moment and how important science is. I'm a new mom. I have this precious little baby girl. I hope she grows up in a world where she feels like she can do whatever she wants, where diversity in expression and personality and culture, all sorts of things, is celebrated, appreciated, tolerated. And I'd love that if she chose a career in science, she didn't feel stifled. She felt like she fit in and she could express express her scientific self in whatever way she wanted. If you inspire a girl to go into a STEM career and show her the different ways that she can do what she loves, she can change the world.
Dr. Taff's story is quite inspirational, and gives an opportunity for a lot of discussion around representation and how women can fit into the STEM fields. So each of the discussion guides, and we will be sharing them on the screen. And so you may want to make your screen full screen if you're not currently full screen, just to enlarge the discussion guides so you can follow along. Each of the discussion guides begins with the poster of the film itself, and then they are broken into a nice introduction about each scientist, with a picture of them in their element. And it will give you a little bit of background information on each of the different scientists. And then they are broken into two different chunks, I would say. The first chunk is before, during, and after sections of the film that you can do with students, that will typically fill a 30 to 45-minute chunk of time along with the film, the section of film for each scientist. And then there's the going further activities, career exploration section, where that is intended to be a separate activity, where you can choose something within that activity portion in order to follow up after doing the first portion. So the first part would be in conjunction with the actual video, and you would have discussion writing around it. And the second part would be an activity that you can do in your classes with your students. Or they can do on their own if they're doing some research. So the section on before the video. So the students can engage in some class discussions around identity, perception, public awareness of scientific fields like virology. Since COVID-19, they may have learned a lot more about fields that they may not have heard of, immunology, and other global health fields. And so they can discuss before the pandemic, what was it that they thought about when they heard the term public health official? What images were going to come to mind? What did they picture if they heard microbiologist or immunobiologist, or other public health official? And they can share that out loud in a class discussion. You can have them pair up and do it. They can do it as a free write, so they can go back to it after watching Dr. Taff talk about her experience. And then during the video, showing of the video, you can pause right at the very beginning and dive into who Dr. Taff introduces as a typical scientist, and how she doesn't necessarily fit into that category. And also ask the students if their idea of a typical scientist kind of matched what she described at the very beginning of the film. Then there are several discussion questions in the guide that you can discuss around identity and perception. And that can be done right there in the middle of, well, not even in the middle, in the first minute of the film. And then you can pause again at 1 minute to discuss how Dr. Taff expresses her own identity, and how she sees herself in the work, and how she made a statement, being true to myself, being true to what drives me was going to be the key to successful and satisfying career. And what drives the students, and what would be their key to success, and how that can translate into their own lives. And then you can finish the video. And then after the video, you can engage in more conversation around STEM identity, intersectionality, and code switching. There's also some questions around several points of discussion related to changing yourself to fit into school or work situations. Did they feel like they have to do that? Why did they feel like they had to do that? If they didn't ever feel like they had to do that, maybe what was the reasons they felt like they fit wherever they are, and how that might not be the same for everyone else. So there's several points of discussion there for after the video, which would wrap up about a 30 to 45 minute chunk of time, depending on how involved the discussion went. And then you could continue to go further. This first section of going further, you could do in that first period, because it's looking at Dr. Taff using another one of NIMSY's partner organizations. The Lyda Hill Foundation made a collection called the If Then Collection, full of amazing women in STEM. And Dr. Taff is a part of that collection. And so you can watch her, a few more videos are linked about her story in her own words and what motivates her. So you could do that. You could watch a few more minutes of film with her, or you can introduce some research where the research would be about nonconformists in STEM and have students choose a nonconformist, and how did they break the mold in their careers, and then use some sort of shared document like a Jamboard or a Padlet or a Flipboard, so that the students can all see it and access it and share it together. And then that can be done kind of on their own as a homework task later. It can kind of carry over into the next lesson, however you wanted to organize it. But then if it's on a shared document, then they all have access to it and look at a variety of scientists that would be considered nonconformists. And then we break into the activity section. And the activity section has several linked lab type of activities, particularly around DNA sequencing, which is something that Dr. Taff talks about in the film, and creating vaccines. And so there's several from NIMSY that are directly linked, and then a few others from free to teachers websites like PBS. So there are several different opportunities for lab activities that you can do to follow up Dr. Taff's video. And then the last two sections are career and meeting other scientists sections. So the career exploration section will allow students to use the nepris.com website to dive into some career exploration and do some research into what kinds of opportunities are out there for microbiologists or global health scientists. What kind of jobs are there? What kind of studying do they have to do? And some of the career prospects, all on that website. Really easy for the students to use as well. And then the final piece is meeting other scientists like Dr. Taff, who do other work in some form of microbiology or immunobiology. Quite a few of them, I'm pretty sure all of them, are actually linked through the If Then collection. And there is biomedical engineers and other biomedicine scientists, as well as practicing physicians, talking about their experiences or possibly having activities related to what they do linked to their videos as well. So there are several ways that you can use the discussion guide to further the conversation, as well as to connect directly to coursework. So it's intended to be used in, the first part is intended to be used in one period and the second part in a second period. So that way you can kind of carry it over 2 days. If you have a 45-minute period, if you have a 60-minute period, you might be able to do both the research and the career exploration and the video and discussion in the first part. I would love to open it up for some questions about the discussion guide if anyone has them. I know that NIMSY has said that there will be a raffle for some Amazon gift cards. So whatever email address you signed up for using to sign up for tonight will be, if you win the raffle, you will get your Amazon gift card to that email address. So if there are any questions, please feel free to put those in the comment section. And in case there aren't any questions, we do have our next watch party, the third in the series of 4, with Gitanjali Rao on Saturday, March 19th. So not on a school night, at 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Pacific. And she will also be part of a family STEM adventure on April 6th, where she will be there and answering some questions, which is very exciting because if you don't know anything about her, she is a 15-year-old phenom, and it's very exciting that she's going to talk about her experiences as a teenager inventing a lot of very interesting and cool tech. So join us on that evening as well. Just going through the comment section to see if there are any questions. And it doesn't appear so. So if there's no other questions, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you all on the 19th. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's preview of the discussion guide, which will be available on April 1st for everyone to use in class. Have a great night.